Kuzampola, everyone. Do we have Maxim joining us? Okay, great. Good morning, Maxim. I know it's really early for you. We're delighted to have you here. Great. So welcome, everyone, and Kuzampo. So our natural world is interconnected. It is intertwined, and it is integral for human life. It is the global life support system that underpins our societies and our economies. Biodiversity is the vast array of life on Earth, an undetermined number of species. An abundance of ecosystem provides us with clean air, water, fertile soil, climate control, food, medicine, inspiration, and happiness. For me, when I want to unplug, I just take a stroll up to Motithang, or I go for a short hike, and I am rejuvenated. Yet, despite its critical importance, our natural world continues to be plundered and polluted. Since the beginning of civilization, we have lost half of our forests, half of our coral reefs, 70% of our wetlands, and we have dammed 2/3 of our major rivers. Since 1970, we have witnessed a 58% decline in populations of more than 3,000 species. Every year, we lose 10 million hectares of tree cover. That's the size of the Republic of Korea. And at our current rate of consumption, we would need 1.6 Earths just to cover our habits. Amidst this grim reality, there is hope. With the beauty and wonder of nature and its potential for resilience and regeneration. Now more than ever, we need to look at our past, embrace the wisdom of our ancestors, and we need to fundamentally adopt 3 shifts. 1, a value shift. 2, a finance and economic shift. And 3, a policy and practice shift. Bhutan, in many ways, is a leader in this space, thanks to the bold vision of our royal family and leaders who, as Ambassador mentioned, had a lot of strategic foresight and care for our natural world. Today, I am joined by our esteemed panel, Maxim Vergeichik and Lekzang Dorji, who will be sharing their experiences working on the ground, as well as drawing from their ancestral wisdom, culture, and heritage. Welcome. So to begin, I'd like to pose the question first to Lekzang. How has Bhutan's unique cultural and spiritual heritage influenced its approaches to biodiversity conservation?
Hello, okay. Thank you, Lhazin, for kindly introducing and providing the context for this session. I would like to share a story in order to answer your question. This story is a famous tale in Bhutanese Buddhist mythology, as featured in the Jataka tales and numerous depictions in Tibetan and Buddhist tankas. The common version goes, long ago in a forest lived an elephant, a monkey, a rabbit, and a bird. So these were no ordinary animals, as they held deep respect and familial bonds towards each other and their environment. One day, out of curiosity, they decided to identify who was the oldest among themselves. The elephant shared, "The tree was fully grown when I was young," while the monkey remarked, "The tree was small when I was young." "The tree was just a sapling when I was young," said the rabbit, while the bird explained that the tree grew from the seed which he had excreted. Thus their ages were revealed, and they positioned themselves accordingly. The youngest elephant at the bottom, the monkey on top, the rabbit atop the monkey, and the oldest, the bird, on top of them all. This was a story told by Buddha to his disciples, a story to illustrate mutual cooperation and respect for seniors. I would say this story perfectly highlights Bhutan's unique cultural and spiritual heritage and its influence on our lives. Stories shared by the revered Buddha have seeped into the stories told during our childhood. and shaped our young minds. The image of the four animals atop each other illustrates environmental and social harmony. The bird planting the seed, the rabbit watering the sapling, the monkey fertilizing the young tree, and the elephant protecting the fruit-bearing tree. No man is an island. We desperately need community and the environment to live fulfilling lives. So delving deeper into the Bhutanese psyche, we are taught that in every tree, every river, every rock lies a spirit which plays a critical role in the health of the environment. People in the villages, even now, when they travel on foot, pray to the Shingil Hamo, or the tree spirit, for shelter and protection. Even now, there are trees, water bodies, large rocks, and even mountains that we do not touch because we believe critical deities or spirits reside within them. As a fortunate result, Bhutan has many unclimbed peaks and a constitution that mandates 60% of our land to be under forest cover for all times to come. As a fortunate result, 69.71% of our lands remain under forest cover today, with about 51% under protected areas. And as a fortunate result, Bhutan has been blessed with compassionate sovereigns who have put the health and happiness of the citizens and the environment above anything else. As Buddhists, or growing up with Buddhist teachings, we have been taught that all life is precious, from the smallest flea to the largest trees. Our belief in the circle of life and reincarnation, that while you may be a human in this lifetime, could be born as an animal in the next, teaches us to hold compassion for every life. After all, if we are all trapped in the cycle of birth and rebirth, who is to dispute if the stray dog outside is your father from your previous life, or if the bee in the garden is your mother from one of your previous lives? As long as we live and breathe on this earth, we need the same things: good food, good health, and good relationships. But most importantly, we need kindness and compassion and empathy in our lives. I am convinced that our strong sense of community and kindness, taught as traditional anecdotes and cultural narratives, have helped shape, in one way or the other, individual and community lifestyles, and even influence national policies for the better. I am hopeful, looking around this room and seeing the bright eyes of our young environment protectors, that these sentiments are being passed down and will continue to be practiced long after I'm gone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lekzang. Maxim, I know you've been to Bhutan a few times now, so I would love to hear your perspective on this question. Thank you, Maxim. I think both your responses wove into this beautiful tapestry to tell a story about the ancestral wisdom that Bhutan has and how, on the ground, things are panning out through practical policies as well as practice. One thing that both of you highlighted is how humanity is inextricably linked to our biodiversity. So I'd be curious to hear, what are some community initiatives of biodiversity conservation that you have worked on? Could you please share some examples of successful community initiatives in Bhutan and beyond? We'll start with Maxim.
So just to add on what Maxime has said, so just as small water droplets coalesce to form great oceans, actions at grassroots levels really do aggregate to form a seemingly separate but united front in the biodiversity conservation efforts. Separate in that these actions take place at different places, taking into consideration the local context and beliefs, and united in that no matter where you are from, you are nurturing your community and your environment. Because we sometimes forget that humans are also part of nature. We gather products from the forest for our sustenance and our crafts. We send our cattle into the forest to graze on plants and leave their droppings to fertilize the soil. and we build channels to irrigate our crops and nurture the soil. In the grand scheme of things, it is sometimes easy to forget the simpler things in life, such as taking only what is required and leaving the rest to recover. Overgrazing, deforestation, overharvesting of valuable plants and materials, hunting or poaching of rare animals. The tragedy of the commons is an unfortunate concept, one that often tends to manifest when material gains outweigh social responsibility and morality. This may sound like an overwhelming task, as it seems like such a gargantuan task to even begin to tackle. However, as with any daunting task, we must begin with small steps, and this is where youth initiatives and actions can step in. So I am a member of the Global Shapers Thimphu Hub, a community of inspired individuals and youth who have come together to discuss common issues and come up with solutions. We have projects on mental health, gender, education and career, climate change, and the environment. The climate group of the GSTH, which I am a part of, have recently launched an introductory series on climate change awareness on the Instagram page. We have aimed to provide bite-sized awareness materials for people, especially youth, to begin their journey on climate awareness. And youth actions can be simple as advocacy. You don't have to come up with the technology to break down plastics or to create a machine that will suck all the excess greenhouse gases out of the air. But of course, I won't stop you. You can simply educate yourself and your family members, friends, classmates, colleagues, anyone you know, really.
Thank you both for highlighting the numerous initiatives that communities across the world are leading. But the fact remains that as much as governments, organizations, and people are putting concerted efforts to conserve our biodiversity, we must back it up with resources. And what I mean by this is financial resources. If you look at the global landscape, the biodiversity financing gap is approximately 825 billion US dollars per year. In Bhutan, it is 20 million US dollars a year. So, given the huge financing gap, I'll turn this question to Maxim. What would you say that, what are some of the measures that we need to do both on a global and local level?
capital, you will believe as if you were successful. People have been thinking that with the fossil fuel discovery and the combustion engine, we have been achieving a lot in our development. Well, it's a certain extent that is true, but if you actually at the same time look at the rate of the destruction of natural resources and the climate issues that have been caused by unbalanced use of the sort of the material sources and the extracted resources, if you add that component in, then you are not as rich as you may see, and the planet may be actually already balancing on and driving people towards some kind of decision. Are we really on the right track? Or maybe we should really think about concepts such as gross national happiness, or then inclusive wealth, whatever you call it. But the whole idea is not separating the financial flows for nature from the financial flows for the rest of it. In practical terms, it means that it is the work that needs to be done with ministries of economy, ministries of finance, to really see how the natural capital accounting can be incorporated. In every particular investment where you're building a road, you're not just worrying about a road, you're worrying about the underpasses and the overpasses for wildlife, because if you are not caring about that, your wildlife is going to start to disappear. So you're actually impairing your natural capital. So this is the philosophy where every economic decision has to incorporate the element of thinking about nature. In that way, you are not going to see this gap of trillion or several million. You will know that you've done maximum, where you are unable to incorporate the natural engineering into your economic engineering, then you could compensate it through supporting wildlife at hotspots next to it. In other words, there has to be that kind of gross national happiness approach globally as a solution. And I believe I see already elements of the world really recognizing that path. It may take beyond our lifetimes, but hopefully with the young people, and I guess in this audience we have a lot of young people, if you incorporate that philosophy of thinking nature every time you think money, we should be okay.
Thank you, Maxim, for breaking down that daunting figure and also complementing it with the more holistic actions that we must put in place. I'm being signaled to move into Q&A, but I do have one question for Lekzang, so please pardon me taking up a couple of more minutes because I'm really curious to hear Lekzang's thoughts on this. I think art plays such a crucial role in raising awareness about our biodiversity. While science quantifies our environmental conditions, art helps us visualize our intricate relationship with nature. And we see this with how artists draws inspirations from nature and biodiversity, and it's been happening since time immemorial, from the majestic artistry of Georgia O'Keeffe to more contemporary artists who are using their platforms to talk about climate change, like Oliver Eliasson and Edward Bitinsky. So my question to Lekzang is, what art or artist or author has influenced your work and why?
Thank you, Lhazin. So art is a powerful tool of communication that can evoke a wide range of emotions and can definitely sometimes be a tipping point for action. For me, while I enjoy the delicate Art Nouveau style of Alphonse Mucha or the Impressionist water lilies of Claude Monet, the most powerful and inspiring work for me has been the photo of Earth, dubbed Earthrise, taken December of 1968 by the astronaut William Anders during the Apollo 8 mission. Seeing our beautiful planet emerging from beyond the lunar horizon in stark contrast to the barren gray surface of the moon has really helped me put things into perspective when I first saw it in my youth. We have but one Earth and one life to live. And I'm really convinced that all the paths we take, all the experiences we have, and all the people we meet really shape not only our lives, but also the lives of the people and the environment around us. As the physicist Paul Dirac once said, pick a flower on Earth and you move the farthest star. And while he was talking more on gravity rather than philosophy, I believe that the smallest actions and events can really cascade into the tipping points of critical moments. Therefore, I would like to thank each and every one of you here for this beautiful moment that we are currently sharing on a beautiful Sunday in a beautiful country with beautiful people sharing my thoughts on sustainable living and nurturing biodiversity. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Lekzang. Art and literature are indeed powerful mediums to enlighten and to evoke action. With that, I turn to the audience for questions. If you could kindly raise your hand if you have any questions for Maxim or Lekzang. This young gentleman here.
So from that, I want to ask you a question. How can the loss of biodiversity impact ecosystem services and human well-being? And what strategies can be implemented to mitigate these impacts?
Maxim, would you like to take that question?
So the ecosystem services is the product of biological diversity. So you will not get clean water, you will not get pure air, and we won't get resources such as forests if there is no biological diversity, if the species composition, species abundance had been destroyed, ruined. So you would actually have something out of it, but not what you are relying on. Like the forest of Amazon in Brazil had been regulating microclimate, had been creating the basically atmospheric movements that have been supporting agriculture all over Latin America and South America. If you disrupt the forest of Brazil and its biological diversity, you actually end up huge disruption for the agricultural sector in Latin America. This relationship is foundational. This is why when we talk about nature, the root cause of it is maintain biodiversity, and you will get the ecosystem services that you rely on. So that has to be the aim of, that has to be the direction of thinking, is the biological diversity is the basis for the ecosystem services.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Deepak, and I'm a professor at RTC. I have I have two parts to this question. It's directed to UNDP because one to do with the Paris Climate Accord. We know that the Paris Climate Accord, many of the goals and deadlines that were set have not been met, and countries have pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. Countries such as the US, for instance, they have pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. What is the way forward, and how are we going to rethink the Paris Climate Accord and come up with a new accord? That's my first question. The second question is to do with the phrase that was used here, the tragedy of the commons. And when we talk about the commons, we are generally looking at the commons within a country, a sovereign country, right? But in your previous answer, the last answer that you gave, you were talking about the Amazon. And there are many rainforests across the globe. There are many biodiversity hotspots across the globe. Should we look at this as something that is common to the people of the world rather than say to the people of a particular country? Because parties come to power, there are different political ideologies that they have, and when they come to power, they take a different stand. There are the left wings, there are the right wings, there are all kinds of political representations, and when they come to power, they look at nature and natural resources, as they are called, and they think of sustainability as just another fancy word. Should we look at having a larger commons, in the sense that shouldn't the UN take the initiative in making, these biodiversity hotspots as something that belongs to the world and not to, say, individual countries? That's my question. Yeah.
Great, thank you for your question. Maxime, since it was pointed at the UN, maybe you can answer the first half of the question, and Lekzang, you could address the commons question. And we're running out of time, so if you could be really quick with your answer, think of it as like an elevator pitch, literally an elevator pitch.
Yeah. So, colleagues, you can solve the climate problem if everybody comes in to solve it. But you cannot really do it by segregating yourself in you have to respect that the Paris Accord has to follow that negotiation process, right? If we are not happy with it, there's no other alternative. That's my response. So you ask, what is the alternative? There's no alternative. The negotiations at these conferences of bodies are very tricky. Every country comes with their own conditions, every single country. The example of United States has pulled out, but now United States is back, at least until the current administration. We don't know what's going to happen later this year when the elections take place. The US may again pull out, or may still stay in the Paris Accord. My assessment of what happens in the negotiations rooms is that there is progress. It may not be as quick and it may not be on time. That's exactly why the Secretary General keeps urging the parties to be mindful of the time that we have on our table. But at the same time, we're all human beings, and it all goes to those 180 countries that are sitting and negotiating. There has to be this same understanding as in your question, that people have to come to that table with the understanding of the urgency. And unfortunately, the world is still run by jurisdictional divisions. So you cannot actually impose a decision of one country on the other. You have to really keep negotiating. Yeah.
Thank you, Maxime. Lekzang?
Lekzang.
Thank you. So regarding the tragedy of the commons, I believe that the tragedy of the commons is a global issue that goes beyond borders, which is why local actions are critically required to not only begin action at a local level, but also to inspire other communities around the world to address this issue.
Thank you so much, Lekzang. To close, I leave you with a constitution passed on by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of the Six Nations of the Turtle Island, known as North America. The great peacemaker once said, "In every deliberation, you must consider the impact on the seventh generation." So when you leave the world, what kind of stories do you want narrated about our generation? When you think about our ecosystems and our built environments, please consider the sustainable impacts on the seventh generation. The future of Bhutan, our stories, and the planet depends on it. Thank you so much.